All right, hi everyone, and welcome back. This is Alexander Lim, and welcome to Author Story. Our featured book for this episode is It's Great to Suck at Something: The Unexpected Joy of Wiping Out, and What Can Teach Us About Patience, Resilience, and the Stuff That Really Matters, which you can check out right now by clicking on the Amazon link in the video description below. Karen Rinaldi is the author and our guest, and she is a self-professed professional speaker of the gospel of suckitude, having racked up sucking at such activities as skiing, boxing, rollerblading, and cycling. She doesn't suck at everything, though, as she has become a publisher for 2 decades and has had her blogs and essays appear in such publications as Oprah.com and the New York Times. So, Karen, welcome to Author Story. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Alex.
Great. So, Karen, how did It's Great to Suck at Something come about? Was it a book that's been a long time coming or just come about because of an aha moment you had?
No, it was a long time coming. It's something I'd been thinking about for about 12 years. And the book, the idea was spurred by a conversation with my then 8-year-old son, who's now 21, so that's even more than 12 years ago,
All right.
who was having trouble in school because he had fine motor skill issues. He had sensory perception problems, and he was really struggling. And we were standing outside pick up at the school one day, and one of the fellow, a parent of one of the fellow students, his name was a lovely, lovely man named John Adams, said, asked, "How's Rocco doing in school this year?" And Rocco kind of looked, and I looked at him. I said, "Well, he's struggling a little bit with his homework. He has a hard time, holding a pencil and handwriting, and so he's off to a little bit of a rocky start." And John looked at Rocco, and then he kind of looked up into the sky, and he said, "Oh, Rocco, it's so great to suck at something."
Okay.
And that was the genesis. Oh, I mean, that was my aha moment, but that was again like 12 or 13 years ago, where I thought, and I watched Rocco's expression, which was one of great relief. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to having to try to, make excuses for it. It was just an embracing of something he struggled with. And it was at the same time I was learning to surf. I was probably I don't even know if it was 12 years ago. I was probably 5 years in or something of trying to learn how to surf. And I learned at a late age, which makes it very, very difficult to even do, let alone get good at.
Right.
And I always asked myself, should I do this? Why am I doing this? I loved it. I certainly loved the effort, but it was kicking my butt. And John's, kind of exhortation of "it's great to suck at something," I thought, oh, there it is. I can just surf and I can suck at it, and I don't have to try. I don't have to get frustrated with the fact that it's so hard and it takes a long time to get better at it. So that started the journey of me continuing to surf.
Okay. All right. And I take it then that, I take it then that you kind of grew up in the usual kind of environment, the household environment, like where you have to succeed at something, and sucking wasn't exactly seen as a good thing. Would this be an accurate assessment?
What's interesting about that is that and this is going to sound odd because I did not grow up in a household that was driven. Actually, it was the opposite in some way. There was, loving parents completely in a family, but a family that didn't have high expectations and had a little bit of fear, actually, about putting yourself in the world. So my drive kind of came in protest to the lack of expectation, if that makes sense. I was very driven as a child, and I think it's almost because there was little expected, which kind of frustrated me. And so I pushed forward. So it wasn't that classic, you have to get all A's or it doesn't matter. It's like nobody was paying attention to how well I was doing in school or in my sports and stuff. But I think that in the absence of that pushing, I found a drive in myself. And I was bad at a lot of things, by the way, even as a kid. I struggled in a lot of things, but I pushed hard to try to get better at them. So I definitely developed a kind of tenacity and grit at a very young age.
Right. And I suppose it's carried on into your adult life when you, like you had to work for a living and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I've been working since I've been 11 years old, and I'm 58, and I'll be working for I'll work forever. I mean, I probably won't ever not work.
True. All right, I got that. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think the money's going to come from somewhere.
yeah, very true. I mean, yeah. Okay, so Karen, let's get on with the book. I mean, this talks about something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, which is failure. I mean, the common
Yeah.
conversation nowadays that, everyone's successful, everyone's got so and so many likes on his or her social media account, they're the CEO of
Yeah.
a tech company at the age of 22 and stuff like that. We live
Yeah.
in a world, like it or not, where people who are successful lead quote unquote perfect lives where everything works and there's nothing wrong. But
Oh, right.
the title of your book implies that success or perfection isn't where the real action is at.
No, it's not. And by the way, all those people you think have perfect lives, I would bet my life, that's how strongly I feel about it, that they don't have perfect lives. So the perception is that everybody else is doing really well, succeeding, doing it effortlessly, and to such a high degree of success. And we are struggling. I do think that people look at others and feel less than. I think they have a lot of anxiety and stress because they're thinking, well, so and so has got this X, Y, and Z. Why am I lacking? Which it's because we fail to actually see what their lives are really about. Social media is all about it. People post only the good stuff, their perfect vacation, the perfect cake they baked, their awesome workout routine, and nobody's kind of showing the warts and all. And really what I'm saying is that if we share our vulnerabilities, if we share the things that, we might suck at, we share our struggles, we're a lot more honest. B, we kind of expose them to the world and go, see, yeah, I'm not perfect. And by the way, I am still, and this is the real thing, the real kicker is I am still worthy. I am still worthy of love. Because at the end of the day, right, that's what it all gets to. It's like, I am worthy of love, even though I kind of suck at this and I mess up this and I fail. So the idea of sucking at something with joy in your heart and not with intention to suck. I don't surf so I can be bad at it. I mean, I surf and I want to get better, and I have gotten better, and I can surf and I catch waves and I can ride them. It's just that it's not really pretty. I'm not very skilled at it. I'll go out and surf, and instead of my son will get 5 to 10 waves in a session, I'll get one because he's better than I am. He started at 5. I started at 40. The idea is if you let go of this striving, just a minute, for just one portion of your life, what you find is a kind of freedom and a relief from that goal setting, that reward expectation, from that pathological striving. To what? To what end? I mean, listen, we have to be good at our jobs because it's transactional. We should we have to be good at parenting because it's our responsibility. We have to try to be good partners to our intimate partners because, that's our obligation, but also our joy to try to do that. But when it comes to golf or tennis or throwing pottery or surfing for that matter, or macrame or knitting or crossword puzzles, or you can name photography, we don't have, who says we have to be good at it? Nobody needs me to be a good surfer. And there is so much freedom I get when I paddle out thinking, it doesn't matter if I catch a wave or not. It doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody's going to be, and the fear is that we'll be humiliated, right? Our fear is that, we'll get out on the dance floor, we'll get out on the golf course, we'll get out on the tennis court, and we'll suck at it, and people will make fun of us, and we'll be humiliated. And that's, my thing is like, people aren't paying that much attention to you, actually. They're really not. They've got their own stuff, A. And B, that humiliation, I think, when you are really looking at it deeply and open-hearted about it, you turn it into humility. And humility is a very different thing than humiliation. Humility is an awesome thing to have more of. Humiliation is one of the most painful things. But I think that it's in our power to turn humiliation into humility. And we can do that by practicing something we're not very good at, something we love to do without that expectation, and then forgiving ourselves for not being expert and not being perfect, because none of us are perfect in anything we do.
Right. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're all people. We make mistakes, and we can't be perfect at everything.
No.
Yeah.
Now, how boring would that be anyway? It'd be
Yeah,
boring.
yeah, yep. It sure would. Okay, so Karen, I'd like to bring up a little bit about this. I don't know how to call this desire for perfection with kids. I mean, there are
Yeah,
such issues as helicopter parenting, and schools giving each and every kid in their class an award, even if they didn't do anything exceptional to earn an award.
yeah.
What does this kind of upbringing do with a child?
Yeah, actually, there are studies by people who are experts in this, and I am by no means an expert, but I am a reader and a synthesizer.
Hmm.
But actually, what it does is it makes kids feel more anxious. Kids know what they're good at and
Hmm.
what they're not good at.
Hmm.
Kids are already, in that peer pressure kind of pressure, peer group pressure situation.
Right, right.
And for us to sort of then go, oh, Billy, Mary, Jane, Rocco, you're really good at this when they're not. They know they're not. So
Hmm.
where, so then there's kind of a disconnect, right? So that's
Right.
just it doesn't measure up. What happens if you tell a kid, you know what? You're good at this, you're good at this, you're not very good at that. Well, we
Hmm.
can work harder, but again, it's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay to suck at it. It's okay not to be, a great baseball player or soccer player. It's okay to be bad at math.
Hmm.
You know what? Let's talk about math. We can get you a tutor. Yeah, sometimes math is hard. Sometimes, reading comprehension is really hard. I struggled in school at reading comprehension, weirdly, and I'm a writer and an editor and a publisher. And I do think that part of the struggle was part of what made me work really hard to get better at it because I was frustrated by it. And it scared me. And so I went into that fear. And listen, I had no one telling me I was good at it and nobody telling me that I was bad at it. I just kind of, assessed that for myself.
Right.
But I think what we're doing is we're doing them a disservice by telling them that if they have to get all A's or they have to win the game, and then you go ... and then what if they don't?
Hmm.
What, they're not lovable, they're not worthy, they're not valued in society? Like, what is the message underneath that? And it's
Right.
not serving kids. Our kids are stressed out. Kids are stressed out because they're trying to get into the right schools for grammar school, let alone middle school and high school. It's insane what we do to our kids.
Hmm.
So I think you just have to give them the space to be, to excel in what they can excel in, and then to have the grit and tenacity for the things they struggle in, but make it okay. Yeah, well, maybe you'll never be good at, chemistry, class. You take this AP chemistry course, you take a chemistry class in high school and you fail. Okay, maybe it doesn't connect with you. That's okay. Maybe you pivot and you do something that you are good at. Maybe you're good at sculpture or drawing. And what happens is we don't value the spectrum of skill sets. We value STEM and other things. And kids start to feel like they're failures if they're just not, ahead of their class. And it's crap. It's just not fair to them because kids are all brilliant. Actually, if you watch little kids, they're all innovative. They all are improvisational. They've all got something to offer. And then we try to put them in these narrow lanes and then lie to them about what they're good. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right, right. And I'd like to ask something about this because there's there's a concern presently with companies with hiring millennials. Sorry,
Yeah.
the common issue seems to be they insist on success coming now, and
Oh,
they can't
yeah.
really form social connections that are needed for work. Would you say this kind of perfectionism is one of the drivers for these sorts of issues?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen studies on that. I don't
Okay.
know the studies on perfectionism and millennials. I do think with millennials is that the one thing I notice is that sorry about that. They don't understand that you have to put the time in.
Mhm.
They believe that they work a year or two and they should get that promotion, and they want to rise quickly because they're so competitive, and they think that they deserve
Mhm.
to run the company after 3 years of work. And my thing is like, let's talk in 10 years, because really any job really that you're going to get really good at, like,
Right.
if you're going to be a doctor, it's 10 years between medical school residency, and all that. It's the same thing to be an editor, really. Get in, be an assistant, and work your way. 10 years later, you're going to be doing the thing. But to expect for it to happen quicker, and it's like they've been served some kind of a batch of lies that like grit and hard work is not the only way, and it is the only way. And by the way, anybody succeeding, I don't care what the message is out there. Anyone who is succeeding is busting their hump so much more than you think they are. Nothing is given to them. It's not like, oh, that guy got lucky. That woman just, stepped into her role. No, she didn't. No, he didn't. They busted their hump to get there. Nothing is given to anybody. So it's the fact of the matter is that nothing's given to anyone and that you still have to bust your hump. But the message is that it should all happen really quickly. So I'm perplexed by that. And I don't have enough sort of background or sociological sort of, studies in my head to understand what that's about. But this myth of perfectionism, I think, is a real thing. And I think it touches all ages. And I think perfectionism is, it's something that's innate. And that's what's interesting about it. Our striving for perfection is innate. And if you go way back, into the philosophy of it, it would be a striving to get close to the divine, right? If you look into more recent psychology, but I mean like, early 19th century psychology, you looked at striving is really based in the same kind of, mechanism in our brains that makes us keep trying to get better, otherwise would we learn to talk and walk and reason and get through the world? So it's actually a very natural progression, right? Our striving. And then what happens is that you can break it down into normal and abnormal striving for perfection. Abnormal striving for perfection is basically saying, unless I am perfect, it's like a misconstruction of the idea. Unless I am perfect, I am not worthy. I have failed. The normal striving for perfection just says, I'm just going to keep trying to get better, but I accept my imperfections. And those people, there are studies that show that people who accept their imperfections are mentally healthier than the people who can't accept their imperfections. So you go back to my sort of idea of it's great to suck at something. Sucking at something, where the stakes are kind of low, is a way of practice, to accept your imperfections. Because I don't know about you, Alex, but I know there is not one thing I do perfectly. Not one. I don't even come close. There are things I'm good at, and there are things I have gotten better at. But there are also things I'm really not good at. And surfing, interestingly, is the thing I love to do the most, even though it's the thing that I do the worst.
Okay, all right. So it occurs to me then that accepting that you suck at something, or in my case, maybe my accepting that I suck at something, it offers me a way of releasing the pressure from all the desire for perfection, and opens the door to accepting myself as an imperfect being. Would this be accurate?
Yes, exactly. And once you do that, just think about all of the psychic space that you open up to try new things and to enter new communities and to, kind of accept, I've always wanted to do, I don't know, some people, like I talk to people about this all the time and practically counsel people, and they say, well, I don't know, I'm kind of afraid to suck at something. And I say, okay, but what would I suck at? And I said, well, it has to be something you really care about, right? So what have you always wanted to do? And people say, oh, I've always wanted to dance, to take dance lessons. And I say, why don't you? Well, I'll never be good at it. And I say, so what? So what? And then what you find is that you enter these communities, and people have been writing back to me to say, okay, I started boxing, or I started dancing, or I started, doing X, Y, or Z. And as soon as they give themselves permission to not be good at it, they fill their lives with something that is joyous, right? So, and then of course you kind of go, I'm still okay. I'm okay if I suck at this. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. I'm okay. And that then runs on for the rest of your life, right? So what I think is that what it does is it allows you, and for the things that do matter, because it does matter, like I said, I always say parenting, partnering, and your work, and your, being good to your community, are things that we shouldn't suck at. At least we should try really hard not to suck at it. And if we do suck at it, we need to get better. That's absolute. My thing is that you're still going to screw up in those places, right? You're still going to make mistakes at work. You're going to find yourself saying things to your kids you can't believe you're saying. You're going to find yourself being less than a supportive partner when you're under stress or something. And what it does, you go, okay, I am not being my best here. Okay, I'm familiar with this. I've just made a mistake. And then you can go about the business of correcting it, as opposed to wasting your time with that self-castigation, that critic in your head saying, I am horrible, I am useless, I am this, I am. And that's just another kind of indulgence, really, right? Like that kind of harangue, self-harangue. It's a kind of indulgence where we go, yep, I sucked at that. Okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better from here on out. And to forgive yourself so that you can go about the business of actually making a difference, like I said, where it matters.
Right. Okay. So, I got that. So, I'd like to go on a little bit of sidetrack here then. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to talk a little bit about old folks. I mean, old folks like to think back on, their younger years, nostalgia, everything was better, and that really isn't the case, is it?
Yeah, I have a little bit in the book about nostalgia because I'm fascinated by nostalgia, because you'll always hear people say, I want to go back to the way it was. And I'm going, the way what was? You know what I mean? Right. So there's a lot of lying and rose-colored glasses when we look at nostalgia. And it's interesting because nostalgia used to be a pejorative, like a negative thing. And then recently there have been studies that say, oh, nostalgia is actually a positive, emotion, because it makes you feel like there's hope, right? So people now connect nostalgia with hope. And I say, I want to go back to looking at nostalgia as a pejorative, because I think people kind of look back and say things were better then. As opposed to being in the present and looking at where they are, right? So it's a way of pushing yourself out of the present. And really, the present is the only thing that matters. What you're doing, how you're feeling right now. I mean, unless you're talking about policies and things that are going to affect future generations. So I'm not talking about it on the mega global scale. I'm talking about the present in the way in which we live. But if you're looking back and saying, oh, it was better then, chances are pretty good that that's a kind of lie that you're telling yourself. There's a great story that, and I forget, I got to go back and look in the book, but it's where it's over 100 years old, this story about these Swiss soldiers, and Swiss soldiers would sing a milking song that was nostalgic and made them, they were out, fighting, and they'd want to be back on their homeland, in their village. And, they would sing this song, and it would send them, into this deep nostalgia. And it got so bad because they couldn't soldier anymore. So they wound up saying that if you sing this milking song, that it was punishable by death, because it would put such a state of not being able to do their job and soldier properly, because they were kind of wistful about being back home, in the village. And I just think that's a kind of funny, like, little anecdote about nostalgia and how it can actually prevent you from living the life you're living in this moment, because you're just living in the past, and that's not going to help you move forward, actually.
Right. Okay. So I'd just like to ask a little something. I'm not sure if you came up with this term, aspirational psychosis.
Yeah.
What is this all about?
So this is tied to the messages that our culture sends us, right? So whether you're looking at, listen, this has been true in advertising, right? The basis of advertising is on buy this product and your life will be better, right? Drive this car and you will be, worthy. And so it's old, but social media, I think, just kind of exacerbates it, because you kind of look at, so much of social media is aspirational, and people are saying, you too can have this life. And so that aspiration, right, of wanting to better yourself, again, it prevents you from just saying, where am I now? Who am I? And, why would you want to be anyone else or anywhere else? Now, I get that's a privileged thing to say, because there are people who are in circumstances, right, that want to, get out of their less than desirable circumstances. But aspirational psychosis kind of preys on our insecurities and preys on our um, belief that everybody else's life is better. And that's just never true. I mean, this is the thing. Again, if your basic needs are being met, right? So I'm talking about a baseline of basic needs being met, not people who are truly struggling, you know, in you know, if they're in abusive relationships, or if they're living below the poverty level. I'm talking about a baseline of having needs met. Beyond that, that aspirational psychosis is saying, you know, everybody else's life is better, and if I just follow X, Y, and Z steps, I'm going to get there too. And really, I'm saying, instead of looking outward, look inward, right? Look inward and kind of live to your own compass, and ask yourself what you need and what you want, not what, you know, not what that person that you, whose life you think is perfect, what, you know, what they have and you want it too, because that's just, you don't ever know what is on the other side of someone else's life. And besides, it's not your life, it's somebody else's. And I'm saying, own your own space, own your own life, own your own actions, as opposed to being aspirational and trying to. Also, it's a thing that says you're never enough, right? If you're always living in an aspiration, it means the thing right below that, right next to that, is I'm not enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, you know, strong enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not, you know, or, you know, just fill in the blank for whatever your insecurity is. And the aspirational psychosis is really a way of just trying to shock people into saying, stop trying to be something else. Look at who you are and love who you are and where you are. And that's where the good stuff is going to come.
All right. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, that message isn't widespread nowadays. So
no, it's not. It's not. And people are beating themselves up all the time, and it breaks my heart. It really does.
All right. So Karen, let me posit this question to you. Let's say you came across someone, you know, who just found out that he or she sucked at something, and I mean all caps, sucked big time. And you had only enough time to tell that person one thing, you know, about what they experienced. What would be that one thing you'd tell them?
I would ask, what did it teach you? Because I think sucking at something teaches you something. And I don't mean teaches you a hard lesson, right? That's, you know, you know, I'm not about hard lessons here, but I'm saying, well, what did you learn from it? What did it teach you? You know, we do learn from really difficult stuff. I learn more about myself surfing than I do in anything else I do that I'm good at. And I have to learn because I see where my impatience is. I see where my craving and desire. I see where my self, the critic in my head, is. I see where my self-doubt comes in. Like, I see a lot of that when I surf, and I have to constantly confront and ask myself the question, what is that about? What is that about? And so I say, if you just majorly, you know, I just went through something with one of my sons, and I won't say here, it's an intimate thing, you know, that happened or that he did or something happened. And I said, you know, and it was scary, and it was a bad choice that he made. And, you know, instead of being angry at him, and I wasn't angry, I was scared for him, and it all turned out okay. But he definitely sucked at making a string of decisions for this thing to happen. Right. And I said, okay, so let's sit down. The next day I said, listen, we're gonna sleep. We're gonna get over this, and then tomorrow we're gonna talk about it, you know. And then we talked about it, and I said, well, so what did you learn? What did you learn about this? Like, let's just talk about what you learned and what decisions you might make going forward. And we had a really good talk about it. And my other son came in and talked to me and said, I think he's going to be okay. And I said, yeah, me too. And he said, you know, and he said, you know, sometimes, and this is interesting, and this wasn't, we weren't talking clear, it was something serious. So we weren't talking about my book or anything like that or my philosophy, but he said, sometimes I think the worst moments are the best moments for learning. And I think that's what he's going to take away from this. And I thought, yeah. So, you know, the worst moments can be tragic, though. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, you know, at what point is it, you know, so again, I'm not talking about that part of it, but, you know, things go wrong. You make wrong decisions. Things really do suck, like you said, with capital letters. Yeah. And I would say, what is it teaching you? And that's enormous.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, great lesson right there.
Mm.
Okay, so Karen, in the last minute or so of this interview, are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share, maybe to inspire listeners?
I would just encourage people to go out and play.
Okay.
A lot of this is really about playing. So I think that you were saying, the millennials, but everybody, we're so driven, right, to success that we forget to actually just sit back and play where the stakes are low, where we don't have to perform, and we let ourselves go. There's a Friedrich Schiller quote, who's a 19th century German philosopher, and he says basically that play, we are most human when we play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the most beautiful quotes, because we forget that play is just as important as work. And I think we are driven. I think Americans are hard working people. And I think that's an admirable quality that we have. But I think we forget to play. I think after, kids have to play to win now, right? Even kids are playing to win. I'm saying don't play to win, just play to be free. And then I would say underneath that, if it's great to suck at something and you want to find something, I always give advice and just say, think about the thing that you've always wanted to do. You wanted to do as a kid, or you did as a kid and you were never good at it, or you wanted to do it. When you look at people doing X, Y, or Z and say, oh, I would love to be able to do that. And then go and do it. Just go and do it, and don't worry if you're bad at it. I just boxed on Friday, and it is the hardest thing in the whole world. And I think boxing is just so much fun. I've done it once before, and I might be taking it up again. Heaven help me. But it's one of those things I'll never be good at. I don't have great endurance, and I'm a little old for impact, but I love doing it, thinking, well, I can box and I don't have to be good at it. I can just, 2 rounds and go to my knees in the ring, and that's okay. And I think, and it's so satisfying to let that go. So go play and go find something to suck at. And if you need to go, in the book, I actually give some, sort of cues of how to find something that you can go and do and embrace your lesser talents.
All right. Well, thanks for those are pretty good words of wisdom. Great. Thanks.
Thanks,
right.
Alex.
You're welcome. So the book, in closing then, the book is It's Great to Suck at Something, The Unexpected Joy of Wiping Out, and what it can teach us about patience, resilience, and the stuff that really matters. The author's our guest, Karen Rinaldi, and you can find her book on Amazon. So Karen, thank you very much for being on the Author Story. Thank you very much for sharing your message. I'm sure quite a few people pick up a lot from this.
I hope so, and thank you, Alex, for having me on.
Right, you're welcome. So everyone, check out It's Great to Suck at Something, and also be sure to subscribe to our channel for a gander at more awesome authors and great books. So see you guys next time on Author Story, where we speak to another fantastic author about another fantastic book.